Welcome to the SaaS Revolution Show, a podcast by SaaStock. Here we interview SaaS founders from around the world who've been there and done that, as they share the ins and outs of how they built their businesses, their operations, their path to securing investment, and more. Our mission with the podcast is to help you, the founder, learn how to scale your SaaS, maintain your well-being, and navigate the complexities of this ever-changing industry. I'm your host, Alex Duma, and together we'll explore the good, the bad, and the ugly in the journey to SaaS success.
Hello, everybody. Hi, Alex. Hope you're driving safely and not looking at the screen. Perfect. Hi, Henry. Haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah, it's been a little bit busy.
Yeah, everyone's busy. It's been very hard to get anybody anywhere the last few months, but I appreciate you taking the time joining us here. Maybe we'll wait one more minute to see how many people will join us today. Hope everyone's had a good time. So good, week start to the week so far. I think everyone that I've talked to so far has felt this week particular has been quite busy. So it's very interesting how this ebbs and flows of people. Cool. Hi, Tom. Are you in the train as well?
Yeah, nearly there. A bit delayed.
No worries at all. So I know there's a couple of us here, and I know John wants to use all the minutes he has. So I'm just going to do a quick welcome for everybody. And just because it's been a while since we've done one of these workshops, just a few of the house rules for us. Obviously, as a workshop, we want everyone to be as engaged as possible. I know John has a few exercises and activities throughout today. So if we can keep our videos on, I think that's the easiest way to make sure that everyone's kind of engaged. Also, the second rule that we have today is obviously if you have any questions, please feel free to either put it in the Slack or just use the raise hand option. Either John and I will kind of call you in when you have. Again, we want this to be an open forum, open discussion. So if you have any questions, please feel free to just put those questions in or just unmute yourself and kind of get the questions in. And lastly, obviously, we are here to have fun and learn from John and learn from each other. So I suppose without further ado, we welcome John Orr, who is the founder of 45 Revolutions and a strategy advisory practice who has worked and comes highly rated by one of our own SFMers. And if it's one of our SFMers, we trust them. So I'll pass on the floor to John, as I'm sure he'll do a much better introduction to himself than me. So welcome, John. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Evie. I really appreciate it. And it's great to spend some time with all of you and see you. I am joining from actually sunny Brooklyn, New York, where it's supposed to be 65 degrees today. So if you hear a guest in the background barking at squirrels, it's because the squirrels also recognize how nice the weather is right now too. So Jovi, really appreciate that intro. I couldn't do any better there, but I'll give you guys a little bit of an overview. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And again, if there are any questions, let's try to make this as interactive as possible. I don't just want to show you a bunch of slides. And I will happily share this afterwards for anybody that's interested. There's a lot of material in here. And there are a lot of concepts I'm probably going to throw at you, which is okay. And I'm happy to follow up afterwards if there's anything that needs a little bit of a deeper dive. But everybody see my screen? Quick thumbs up. Awesome. So I want to talk a little bit about how we as leaders decide what to build and then determine, did we build the right thing? And those two things are quite interconnected in my mind. As Jovi mentioned, I'm going to go through a couple of quick exercises to try to keep it interactive and prompt you to share some things if you're brave enough, and we'll see how it goes. So I'm John Orr. I've spent 30 or so years in some form of product and technology role, most recently as the chief product officer at the publication Business Insider. I left about 18 months ago and have subsequently been off on my own doing strategy advisory for fintechs, edtechs, media companies, and SaaS companies worldwide, which is great. So a lot of my clients came from Europe and Latin America. So it's been a lot of fun to work with folks around the world. And, in as much as I've learned things that are worth sharing, I'm happy to share them with you today. And these are things that are meant to be pretty lightweight in helping you devise a strategy and, most importantly, implement the strategy. These are some of my favorite strategy quotes. The last one I think is one of my favorite, which is the essence of strategy is choosing what not to do. There is no shortage of things to do, and you can do whatever you want. It's what to do and what not to do. A little anecdote, I recently took up fishing, oddly enough, during the pandemic. And one of the rules in fishing, important rule, is eliminating water. So it's knowing where not to fish is just as important as knowing where to fish. And that's where you concentrate your time. So strategy is about what we're doing and why, and then you get into the how and the where later. So quick prompt, everybody, if you can, drop this in the chat. What is your product strategy today? What would you say your product strategy is today? Let's see if anybody brave enough to share their product strategy. Okay, thank you. Building features to go up market. Great. Anyone else? Don't be shy. That's okay. We'll get into this a little bit more as we go in terms of devising a product strategy, but there are a couple of tools. Okay, great. Generate ancillary revenue for hotel operators. Building to our roadmap. Great. Thank you all for sharing these. I really appreciate that. So when I look at product strategy, this is something that was really illuminating to me that I learned in the last dozen years or so. But when you think about a product, most of us think about the actual product and not the core product. So it's a can of soda on a shelf, right? That's the actual product. The core product is something else. The core product is something that appeals to a core human emotion. And these emotions generally gravitate towards four main buckets. And I didn't make these up, so apologize if they look a little weird. But there's the brain, which satisfies our need as human beings to be masterful. There's the heart, which is part of the human need to connect and feel a part of a tribe or a group. There's the gut, which satisfies our need to cheaply accumulate resources in as efficient manner as possible. And finally, and again, I apologize, the genitals, right? And this is the desire to perpetuate the species and a mate. So the core product always appeals to a human emotion in one or more of these categories, and really good ones can cross all four of them. But then it is contained within the delivery mechanism, which is the actual product itself. And then it's surrounded further by an augmented product, which enlivens and delivers a little bit more value that can be differentiated. So let me use a quick example here. So when you buy an airline ticket, that's the actual product. The airline ticket is the actual product. The core product is freedom. The core product is mobility, right? And that satisfies these human needs and emotions of freedom and mobility and connectiveness, right? And even the airline ticket can itself, if there's a discount, right, or a discount airline, that satisfies our ability to get resources really cheaply. So the airline ticket is the delivery, one could argue the seat, right, is the delivery mechanism for freedom and mobility for you as a human being. And then it is surrounded by a set of augmented products that make it even more valuable. Airline lounge access, frequent flyer points, partnerships with rental cars, credit cards, and so forth. And that makes the product even more valuable and sticky for you. So this is a framework that is super useful when you start peeling back what you're actually providing to your audience or to your target market, is what human need and emotion are you satisfying? And as builders of products, that is really, really important to get to, so you build something that not only has value, but has stickiness in the future. And we'll get into that in a moment. So as builders of products, we're meant to create habits, right? The product is meant to be used and used frequently. To build a habit, the product has to be used, or the behavior, sorry, has to be exhibited at least once a week. It has to be that frequent. So when you're building a product, there is this concept of the hooked model. And this is Nir Eyal, who's a professor at Stanford and NYU, who created this. And this is all based on neuroscience, which I love. As somebody with an English literature degree, I surprised myself, and that I'm very, very attracted to the concept of neuroscience. But the trigger is what is the trying to satisfy, and it is universally a negative emotion. And I cannot emphasize that enough. Your product is satisfying a negative emotion. And what are those negative emotions? Well, they're associated with the brain and the heart and the gut and the genitals, right? Like, I'm afraid I'm going to lose my job. I'm afraid I'm not a good enough parent. I'm hungry. I'm bored. I'm worried about my financial future. All of these are negative emotions that the best products satisfy. And when you feel that internal trigger, that's when that product comes into play. I look at brushing your teeth, right, is a habit. Sometimes you think about habits as negative things, right? I mean, I know they satisfy negative emotions, but habits, are beneficial. Brushing your teeth is beneficial. And over time, you have been rewarded by having teeth so you can eat your favorite foods, right? That's the negative emotion that you're satisfying by brushing your teeth, is I can eat my favorite foods. I'm still teaching my kids this, but me, decades later, having gone through this, I don't even think about that negative emotion anymore. It's time for bed, or I get up in the morning, it's time to brush your teeth. So you've cemented that emotion, that association, sorry, with an event in your daily life that keeps you going through this loop, right? And so you have this negative emotion. The action you take is reaching for your product, all of your products, to satisfy and make that negative emotion go away. And if you're successful in making that negative emotion go away, you get a reward. Oh, I feel satisfied. I'm a more confident parent, right? I'm more confident in my investing strategy. I have the freedom to travel and see my parents whenever I want. So those types of things are satisfied with the reward. And if I'm rewarded enough times, I'm going to make an investment. And the investment phase is very, very critical. I'm going to give you my email address. I'm going to open up my wallet and take out my credit card. I'm going to join a community, right? And these things make it so that the next time I feel that trigger, I'm immediately going to take the action that you want them to take, which is using your product. And then you do the reward, and you go through the loop again. You have to go through this loop hundreds and thousands of times to cement that habit forming association. But this is really crucial, right? Think about your core product and what negative emotion it makes go away for your audiences. That is where all of this starts. And it has been such a useful tool when I'm working with people to help understand what they're doing and to help differentiate what they're doing from their competition, right? So this is really, really important. So once you've understood what your core product is and the potential negative emotion that it's satisfying, you want to figure out who is the most important person to solve this for. And we talk about the concept of personas, right? You're creating a proxy for a human being that exists in the real world that is the target for your product. And they have this persona. And so I've built one here using a client that I worked with that's for an engineer, for example. And so you can kind of see how the trigger fits into their daily lives. So I'm an engineer, and I'm a talented engineer. I have to show progress so that I can grow, but there's too much weighing me down, and there's so much inertia in my workflow that's making me worried that people don't think I'm moving fast enough. And what does that affect? My career, my ability to provide for myself and my family. That is a negative emotion, right? I'm worried about what people think about me. So what you need to do is examine the context in which that feeling, that negative internal trigger occurs, right? I'm thinking about my future. I want to get promoted. And when am I thinking about it? Well, I'm about to walk into stand-ups and I've got to provide an update. And I don't feel confident in my ability to do that. So there's this external trigger that your product provides that reminds them that they can satisfy that negative emotion. I'm going to show you a notification that you can check the deployments for this week that give you the confidence when you walk into that stand-up that people know you're moving quickly enough. right? And so now an association starts getting built. Every time I go into stand-ups, I'm using your product because it makes me feel more confident, right? I know that's a lot to lay on you, but think about these examples in your daily lives and the daily lives of your customers, where these types of situations, the context, the triggers might occur. And that's where you need to hone in and prioritize what you're building. And so when you are building these personas, you ask why something happens until you can't ask why anymore. And that's where you start getting to the core value of what you can provide, right? And so I'm an engineer. Again, I'm worried about showing my performance to my peers and my bosses, most importantly. So you want them to check their sprint goal progress before like a leadership meeting or before stand-ups. Why? Well, it ensures that I know the current status of my goals and my team's goals. Well, why? It gives me the confidence that we're delivering quickly and safely. Well, why is that important? Well, it allows me to connect my work to business outcomes. Well, why is that important? It makes me look competent to my boss and my peers. And what does that mean? I get promoted. I can provide for myself and my family. I get self-actualization. I demonstrate mastery, all of these emotions that are core to the human experience. So when you're building products, what you want to do is keep asking why this is important until you can't ask why anymore. And you have that eureka moment of like, okay, that's connecting this value to something deep and human and central to our existence, right? Okay, that was a lot. I'm going to pause here and make sure everybody feels okay about what we've consumed, because what I want you to do is go back and look at some of the things you talked about in the chat with your product strategy, and now examine your product and say, what is my core product? What is my actual product? And what is my augmented product? So what I'd like to do would take about 5 minutes to do this or so. Let me get my handy timer out here. And I'm going to put the airline ticket example back up here so everybody has it. And this will give you sort of a template for how you can possibly paste, if you will, your product onto it. And think about that core product. Which of these 4 core human needs does it satisfy? And is there an opportunity to satisfy more of them? So I'll take questions now, or if anybody is needs help with this, I'm here, but I'd like to take 5 minutes.
Is that okay
Igor,
to
you
ask
have
a question?
Of
Yeah,
course, yeah.
Please.
Yeah, thanks. This is really good. On the I did a similar exercise in the past, and one conclusion that I came to is so I just introduced my product. So we do calling software for businesses. So businesses will take our tools to be able to make calls, receive calls for their sales teams and customer service teams. So when the buyer center is made up, the business owner, if it's a smaller business, and the sales leader or the customer service leader in the meeting, and choosing the product, looking at our demos, and so on, so on, so on. So our we sell to these 2 personas, either the business owner himself or the sales manager and the customer service manager. So one of the jobs that they have to do, one of the pains we try to solve, and we come up with this idea is to how can we solve this is create automated reporting in a beautiful way, which will automatically send by email to the managers about how the team performance was. So they can set up this very easily on a weekly basis, daily basis, whatever, and choose what they want to see, and it automatically delivered to them via email. So all they want to do now need to do is just get out the email, print it out, and just go into the meeting and present it. So it makes their job very, very easy. And by having it like a nice, beautiful UI, that will make them more it looks like they did the job, whatever. So we're just making their job easier. So that's one where the managers are involved, and we understand why they want to look more competent in the eyes of their the line managers, the business owner, whatever. But when we try to sell to the business owner, I mean, he doesn't need to prove to anyone anything. He doesn't have any personal interest in a way. Like, how can we make it to get him into this? Like, what kind of emotion
Mhm.
would, if you understand my
Yeah.
question? Thanks.
Yeah, and so this is a great one. Thank you so much. Is it Igor?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, great. Thank you. This is a great one because you can have different personas, and you've just got to prioritize those personas in terms of what you build first and who is the largest, most accessible audience that you can possibly attract. But especially for things like two-sided marketplaces, right? There's two very different core products depending on which side of the marketplace you're occupying. And so for your example there, I think you're spot on with sort of the line manager. I need to look good. I need to prove performance of me and my team so that I continue to get a paycheck and maybe I get a raise and get promoted and career development and so forth. For the business owner, this could be, well, how does this make them more competitive? Because they're worried about their business. Maybe their competitors are going to eat their lunch and they're worried about staying competitive. Oh, if I use this software, I am satisfying my customers better, right? And I can demonstrate that my customers are better served if I use this software. And the ROI of it is, far and away better than anything else I could invest in. So like, think about what is worrying the business owner all the time. Am I competitive? Am I getting market share? Do I have a board to report to, right? Do I need to attract and retain employees? Oh, this makes my employees' job easier so that they can advance their careers, right? So I can hire more line managers and they stay with my company because employee turnover is a problem. That could be another deep-seated fear in a business owner's world, right? And so there are a lot of those emotional itches to scratch in that case, but you're spot on in terms of examine the individual persona and create that persona and create the context using those 5 panels that I showed you. Again, it's like, who are they? What is holding them back and what is their internal trigger and how can you satisfy it with the same product as you satisfied with for the line managers? Does that make sense?
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a great one. Thank you very much for asking that. All right. I think we're kind of at time. Did everybody get a chance to give this a shot? Are there any brave souls that want to share their work? Or do we just pick somebody out of a hat?
Milos, you unmuted yourself. Yeah, there you go.
I can follow up for Igor. I mean, we're
Awesome.
working in the same B2B, so it's like everything is fun there. So the challenges. But okay, let's go on to your thing. So I mean, I would say that our product at the end eliminates decision paralysis, anxiety from the guest of like what to do during their stay. I mean, our product solves like all the guest engagement and guest experience at the hotels. Basically, we provide different, like I would call it CRM and experience engine, where you see what's on the property, what's around, what to do, what are the events, call you out, and et cetera. So we do provide, well, I would call it freedom and mobility. I mean, these words you say like are the same there. But really, comparable to Igor, we are selling to enterprise who is looking only at additional revenues from additional sources, and they don't care about the engagement, freedom, mobility guests. Like if they help them sell more rooms, they're good. And yeah, that's the answer to the. I mean, I would say to the question for our core product.
No, I like that. Because so let's look at those 2 personas really quickly.
Yeah.
So there's the guest, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to a property with my family and I want to provide them with the best possible experience I can and get my money's worth because I have a 13-year-old who's going to hate me if we have a bad time. And I'm a bad father, right? And I'm a bad father, right? That is core. The hotel can use that, right? If they understand their customer and what their core product is as a hotel, then that can sort of bind to your core product, which is
Yeah.
now I can serve those guests better, and they're going to come to my property and not go down the road, right? And they're going to, and
Yeah.
I need to sell more spa treatments because it's higher margin, and so I'm going to
Exactly.
figure out how to. Well, look, this is I'm gonna appeal to families with young kids, and I've got childcare over here, and
Yeah.
it can give the parents a rest, right? And that's going to up my margins, and that's going to make me more competitive and stay in business, right? And so
Yep.
that the core product is family togetherness or whatever, right? It's family satisfaction. You can go in a bunch of different ways with this depending on the property and the offering. It could also be like, oh, I'm appealing to 20-something single people who just want to like hang out and party. Okay, that's a completely different thing, but it's still satisfying this need to connect, maybe find a mate, all of these things.
Yeah. No, exactly. And I mean, we have all of this customization. You can filter out, provide the content that's very specific who you are. So we know really a lot about you as a guest. So yeah, I mean, it's a good point. But similar to Igor, we have a business owner or a GM buying with an idea, and then offloading to operational team that are like, why do we need to use something here?
I mean, does it streamline their lives, right? Does it make their the operations team now focus on higher order problems, right? And not have to worry about, oh, how do I book spa time for this family while I book childcare? Well, I'm making this up, obviously, but
no,
if
true.
you
More work for them.
And the operations team, then they get promoted because they're providing unique, experiences and customer satisfaction. All of these things chain together, which is fantastic. And if you can create something that appeals to all of them, like look at all those personas and say, am I appealing to all of these different buyers, right? The operations team could do an internal sell to the management, say, I need this product to make my lives better because it's going to attract more customers and make their lives better, right? So buy this product. I had to do this all the time. I had to sell my CFO on why I needed some enterprise software in my job. And my answer is, I'm going to give you 10x back of what you invest in this because my engineers are going to be way more productive, right? And we're going to move faster, whatever the answer is. So
that's good.
That's great. You guys are you're on the right track here.
Thanks.
This is great. Okay. Let's wrong screen. Let's keep going. So you've figured out what you need to build, right? What's your core product? What's your actual product? What are the augmented products associated with it? Who do they appeal to? How do you know if you're doing it right? And this is the measurement phase. Strategy feels like a lot of, intellectual exercise and chin stroking and so forth. But if you don't execute it, it's of zero value. It's actually less than zero value. So there are some frameworks that I like to use to measure outcomes, right? And you may have heard of OKRs, John Doerr and, IBM and the GE and Google and so forth. I know a lot of people roll their eyes when they hear OKRs, so I kind of want to come up for another term for it. I just haven't been successful yet. I was one of those people that rolled my eyes. Oh, OKRs. This sounds like some big McKinsey consulting thing that we need to do, and it's very performative. It's really powerful and lightweight if you do it right. And I've found this works in small startups. I'm advising a company of 5 of us. There's 5 of us, and we're trying this out because it keeps you sort of on track and it provides visibility to peers that are in different time zones. So that's useful. And it works for companies of thousands of people, right? And so the objective is what you're trying to do and why it matters. And we've talked a lot about the what and the why. Why does this matter to me as a human being? So this is the objectives. These objectives are sort of lofty aspirational things that you need to do to achieve the results that you want to achieve. And then the key results are how you measure it. How do we know if we've achieved our objective? And so I try to build these in this hierarchical way where there's this concept of the ultimate why. Why are we in business? What purpose does my company have in the world? Why do we exist? That's a big intellectual exercise, right? That's like an existential question. But like, what do we want to be in 5 years? And why are we helping people? Why is our product exist in the world? So you break that down into annual objectives. what do we need to do in 2024 to advance in this 5-year plan? And oh, by the way, where are we in the 5-year plan? Are we in year 1 or we are in year 4? Those are very different answers. And so we build these objectives and you start breaking them down. What do I need to do in Q2? We're coming up on Q2. I can't believe it. What do I need to do in Q2 to hit my annual goals? And if what did I miss in Q1? So maybe I have to play catch up. And then start even breaking that down further into monthly and weekly and daily. And all of these things ladder up and down to each other. So I like to think of the OKR space exists in kind of this quarterly to 5-year space. And then there's a concept of SMART goals that overlap a little bit every quarter. And we'll talk about SMART goals in a minute, that get down to the daily level. And so what I joke, I half joke about this, but I like to say I can connect a JIRA ticket that an engineer has with a 5-year objective and all points in between. Everything that everyone in your organization does, they should be able to connect it somehow to what we're trying to achieve as a company. And that, as leaders, is so important for us to give our teams context. Why does this matter? What is my role in this? And that gives people purpose. And that gives them a feeling that they're in this and they can contribute to this 5-year, plan, and they believe in it. And that's important, right? For employee satisfaction and retention. That's a human emotion there, right there. But so how do we connect a JIRA ticket to a 5-year goal? So this is something I worked on with a client. It was kind of a work in progress. And so if you look at the 5-year strategy, this is a language learning company. Become the learning community ecosystem of choice for language enthusiasts worldwide. That's a big goal. It's an important goal, I think, right? That's lofty. So you're helping them on their language learning journey from learning to practical use, and then you reach n amount of learners by this date. This is the end of the 5-year plan, right? Okay, so what do we need to do in 2024 to advance to realize that goal? Well, we're going to create this ecosystem concept and we're going to prove whether it works or not. We're going to grow our language learners and new sales revenue by 15%. And we're going to improve efficiency so we can do more with less by X, right? And so those are our annual targets. And you can see that they're shared across the organization. That's a really important thing. I like to do shared goals. I, as a product and tech person, have to have an ownership stake with my business partner in the goal. They have a role to play and I have a role to play. And if we don't do our jobs, the goal doesn't get achieved. So that sharing is hugely important. Okay, so what's my organization's annual goal in the context of the company's annual goals? So for this organization, it's the revenue organization. So I've got this 15% learner growth. That is mine. I own that. Well, what do I got to do in the first quarter to even get close to that 15%? And so this is where it really gets important in terms of prioritization as well as the order of operations. Q3, right, is a massive, part of the calendar in terms of sales. So what do I got to do in Q1 to make sure I even can hit my Q3 target? Maybe I got to build something. Maybe I've got to hire somebody. Maybe I've got to create an entire team. Those things have to happen earlier on in the process, and you have to have that sense of order so that when I get to Q3, I haven't already shot my goals because I didn't do the right thing in Q1. So now I understand in Q1 I've got to build this single CMS. Otherwise, we're dead out of the gate. And then every month I've got sprint goals. We do 2-week sprints. There's 6 sprints to a month. Here are my sprint goals. And then I've got individual goals for that sprint. And so this is how you ladder up and down, and you've got context for what you are doing as a leader and what your team is doing individually and how it connects to what you're trying to achieve as a company and why do you exist? What's your existential purpose on this planet? And so this is proven to be a really useful framework, and you share these company-wide and everybody sees them and there's visibility and transparency, and that's the context that connects teams together. So it's not the sales team is heads down in a silo and the product team is heads down in a silo. Okay, so we're going to talk about what makes an excellent OKR. I use the term aspirational all the time in these goal setting exercises, and I think it's the right thing to do. These are stretches, right? You're trying to achieve something extraordinary. Otherwise, why would you be doing it? Why do we spend so much time doing this stuff if you're not out there trying to achieve something extraordinary? So be aspirational, stretch a little bit, and then figure out how you can measure whether or not you're doing that aspirational thing or coming close to that aspirational thing. So there are a couple of ways to build these key results. Key results are the measurement. So there's a natural quantitative element to key results. So there's a directional verb plus a metric plus a change, to and from, or an action verb plus a metric plus a change, to and from. And these are human readable sentences, right? These are meant to be human readable that anybody could understand. And so here's an example of a project I'm working on with a buddy of mine to provide the unbanked in Africa with financial freedom and seamless access to the formal economy. That's aspirational. That's something I can get behind, right? That's important to human beings. This is freedom, right? And so how do I measure whether or not I'm doing this with my product? Well, I've got this goal. I need to onboard 25% of mobile money agents in the second quarter, going from 25 to 50. So again, action verb onboard, a metric 25, and a direction from 25 to 50, right? And so you're showing that progress. And that's how I know I've achieved this, is whether I've hit this. I could also have a key result for the same goal, right? Which is growing cashback earning transactions 10% to 500,000 kwacha in Q2 of 2024. So grow 10% direction, from 0 to 500,000 maybe. Grow savings account holders by 5% every month. Grow 5% time frame, which is sort of directional. So in this 3-month period, that has to occur. So this is how you create sort of human readable, very impactful things. And you're going to know whether you hit these or not, right? You've got metrics that you're looking at that are going to tell you whether or not you've hit them. It's just picking the right metrics is the important piece. Okay. This is another framework that I like to use. It's a little bit of a modification of the inverted pyramid. But you start connecting your vision to these top line measures, and that will give you your objectives. And pick the most important ones and try to pick 3 to 5. Stay focused. Again, strategy is what you don't do. So pick the most important ones to build the product that is going to satisfy that internal trigger and that human need, and do it first, and do the smallest increment of it as fast as you can. Measure it and see how you're doing, and that'll tell you what to do next. And so you can start building these OKRs, and this is sort of another work in progress one that I was playing around with. When you've got these themes of growth and operational excellence and people and culture, those are things that then you can align objectives to, that you align key results to, and you have annual, quarterly, monthly, and weekly measurements of each one of these, right? And so if I've got a goal to attract and retain the best technical talent, because if I can't do that, I'm not going to achieve any of my other goals anyway, right? I've got hiring metrics, I've got retention metrics, I've got the ratio of various software engineering levels, which would be a proxy for how well people are progressing in their careers. Do I have bench strength and a succession plan if somebody decides to leave? So those are the key results that will help you measure whether or not you're being successful in attracting and retaining the best technical talent, because your people and culture goals are strategically important to your organization. All right, we're almost home here, family. SMART goals is the final component that I really like, and you may be familiar with this framework. It's something you use weekly, and this helps ladder into the OKRs, especially the key results, and it helps people stay connected with where they are in their progress, whether it's personal goals or their team goals and professional goals. So SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And you want goals that satisfy all 5 of these. So is it specific, right? Are there specific criteria that you can articulate for this goal? is it measurable is sort of the layup here, the slam dunk here, right? How does this goal express itself in a measurable criteria? Are these goals achievable, right? It's tough to create goals where they're not achievable because somebody doesn't have training or access to tools or time, for example. Are they relevant? How does this relate to our quarterly, annual, and 5-year OKRs? It's got to be relevant. And is it time bound, right? Is there a time frame or set of milestones for this SMART goal? So I like to track these weekly. When I'm doing this with direct reports, it's during our one-on-ones every week. And we kind of look at, hey, how are we doing on this goal within this time frame? And so here's this example I was using. So the objective is an engineer wants to get promoted to an engineering manager. That's their sort of professional development goal. And to do it, they need to obtain an AWS certification level by this date. And you track whether or not it's, is it on track, off track, at risk, deferred, and the date of the last check-in. So you're talking about this every week. So is this specific? Yes, there's a specific AWS certification associated with this goal. That's specific. Is it measurable? Yeah, that's kind of like a binary. Was the certification achieved? Yes or no? It's measurable. Is it achievable? Yes, we think it's within this employee's skill set to achieve this certification. Is it relevant? Well, yeah, it's strategically important. AWS is the cloud infrastructure that we use as an organization. Everybody needs to be very good at this and fluent in it. And it's relevant to this person's career aspirations. And as it time bound, yes, there's a date associated with it. So I like building SMART goals. Again, 3 to 5 is a great metric to have for SMART goals. And these SMART goals ladder into the key results for the objectives for the quarterly, annual, and 5-year plans. So all of this hangs together, and they're very useful, lightweight, human-readable tools that you can use with your teams to stay on the same page. And that context is so important, I've found, and regardless of organization sizes. Okay. Again, I am guilty of throwing a lot at you all at once. So let's see, do you have 3 to 5 objectives for 2024? So we're going to do another 5-minute exercise here. Do you have 3 to 5 objectives? And do you have key results that you can easily attach to them? And so I'm going to go ahead and put back the anatomy example here as a reference. So you can build, no, try one. Just try one in 5 minutes. See how you do. Any questions I can answer in the meantime? All right, timer going now. Okay.
Fully agree. Good objective, and
Sorry, it doesn't. Sorry if it sounds like I was thinking a lot about company visions and objectives, and I hear a lot of stories and all, but look, ultimately everyone is in for the money, and whatever where you dress it up or whatever way you say it, at the end of the day, everyone just wants more money.
Yeah.
So
Well, Well, I mean, yeah, that's true. I mean, I have some that, I mean, I'm on the drone side, like, hate all of the frameworks and stuff, like it's always, but you have to have common language to speak among the big organizations somehow. So, I think that OKRs are somewhere there.
And you cannot say this to the staff. You cannot say, guys, I want to be rich. Come on, let's align with my vision.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You guys are kind of killing it today. I really appreciate this. This is great because this was an example that I wanted to touch on.
No,
I would argue revenue objectives are key results. They're not objectives.
Exactly, the outcomes. So maybe I have like a good one that, I mean, we're continuously trying to do is because overall, in order to demonstrate our value, we need continuously to increase the time spent that the guests spend actually in browsing through the web and app and all of the other systems. And since we are really the outreach and all of the engagement piece can start from SMS, email, and other stuff. So our key results is always to help our dashboard users, hotel operators, to understand our best practices and guides, how to get back the guest into the discovery mode and continuous looking at the thing. So like it's always like, okay, they just do simple announcements, I would call it, like without any linkage, and like, okay, here is how to do it. And then like it's always like key result is when we moved it, and it's easy measurable. We can easily see, okay, the guest like went to the click on the spa booking once, and then when they improve, it's we can immediately show the results to their management, like, okay, they went to book a spa 35 times per day. So that's that's it.
Oh, we have a guest. I love it. We're gonna go. We have a pet.
Yes.
Mine's
yeah. You're totally blurred, so you cannot see anything.
Henry, there's Henry's guest. So no, I think that's right. Like you're absolutely right, right? Which is okay. I've got a number of guests that I need to move from one place to the other in terms of a metric. Within a time period, or like engagement is a great one, right? The objective is to provide a better guest experience, and I'm measuring that by understanding how engaged the guest is. Oh, if I provide a better experience, they're going to do this more. They're going to book more things. Maybe they're going to book more of the same thing, like more spa visits, but also I'm booking golf and spa, right? And so I've got more of an integrated customer there, and that is a metric that matters to me because that shows customer satisfaction, margin growth, all of those fun things, right? Yep. And if you do that, then and by the way, if you do it to the tune of 10 million in 2 years, Igor, right? Then you can see that you've been successful in what you set out to achieve, which is provide a better guest experience for these hotels so that they can stay competitive, right? And so that's how I look at those things. I'm a big fan of, right? Engagement creates monetization. Monetization doesn't create engagement.
Yeah. So I don't know if anybody, like, there is no one there. I mean, I have like one interesting question. So how do you attribute success to what you did as a product, or what your product did? So for us, it's very interesting. I mean, like, whatever, hotels here organize, and they have like a s'mores night every other day. And they continuously like complain, oh yeah, like we always have like 1 to 2 people. And they start using our system and they're like 50 people, 70. And of course, s'more kit that costs $25 to sell to 2, and now you can sell to 50 people, like huge increase. And that's like every other day. And it's always like they start to get it for granted, like okay, yeah, but without us, you didn't promote it enough. So like, and it's I mean, I don't know, it's just line of thought. It's it's really hard to continuously promote and educate even the management around it. So like so they kind of fuel whatever you're doing. I'm just I don't know, whatever, venting, thinking out loud. Yeah.
Bring it. This is if this is therapeutic, I've also done my job.
Yeah.
So John, it's Tim Bolo here. I've got a question. So we've used OKRs before.
Yep.
And one of the issues I've got is like stuff like Net Promoter Score, which is quite late in the day. So everyone's kind of saying, we're going to measure the key result is the net promoter score increases by X or Y.
Yep.
And what we've found is it's such a, complex measure. It kind of rolls up all kinds of other stuff in it, that it actually becomes fairly meaningless when it's very late in the day, because by the time someone's given you a poor NPS, there are probably a whole lot of key results before which have gone wrong. So is that something you've come across?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Thanks for bringing that up. What you've got to figure out is what is moving NPS the most, right? And do a bunch of experiments to see what, and you're right, it's kind of obviously a trailing indicator. But a company that I work with is edtech company, like NPS is their big, sort of golden metric, but there are KRs that ladder into that, and it's experiments. So, okay, I'm going to try this type of course content. They're leaning into AI course content right now, which is great. Is that helping to improve their NPS? Does this course move NPS more than this other course? Right. And so if you can kind of figure out the key components of that NPS for whatever service or product you're providing and play with them and see which ones, this quarter we did this thing a ton and NPS didn't move, but the next quarter we did this thing a ton and the NPS moved. This thing is more important for customer satisfaction than this thing. Helps you prioritize that on the roadmap, helps you do all sorts of things, right? Could lead you in another direction, could open up a new business line, quite honestly. And so those are really interesting things. And I'm glad you asked this question, because there can be these, I learned this term really recently from Sarah Lobkovich, who I'm a huge fan of in the OKR world. Are you familiar with the term watermelon metric? So a watermelon metric is, it looks green on the outside, but it's red on the inside. And so watch out for metrics that are hiding something, right? Or obscuring something. Revenue is going through the roof. And so everything looks great, but retention sucks. And we've hit the limit in terms of our reach and we can't grow anymore, but revenue was our watermelon metric, right? So watch out for things like that. I also look at that in terms of, I've almost applied it to this one situation that I always run into, which is we talk about, let's see here, in the SMART goals, like you're measuring it all the time, completed, on track, off track, at risk. In my experience, teams will tell you, oh, this thing's green, we're on track. And then the next day, it's literally not only at risk, it's not going to happen. And I'm like, what happened in 24 hours? Did we just unplug everything? What happened? And it's the inability to send up warning signs early and often that, to me, creates, it's a different, I'm stealing the watermelon metric and creating my own, right? Which is, oh, this looked green until it's red, until we cut it open and it's actually red. Well, why? Nothing happened overnight. You had warning signs. Maybe you committed to too much and you're afraid to tell me that. Okay, well, if you tell me that, we learn. Don't commit to so much. We're going to get better at estimating. All of these things can contribute to them. But yes, be wary of these metrics that are obscuring something and making it feel good when it doesn't feel good. Thanks for that. That was a good one. Well, gang, we are at the end of our program at this point, and I appreciate how interactive and generous you've been with sharing and so forth, but sort of open it up to more question and discussion at this point.
So I've got one more question just while we're at it. So when you talk about like you, I've had occasions where something's been green to the moment that suddenly it's not just red but flashing red, or not going to happen. And what I've found is, you try and create the kind of environment where people will tell you bad news or tell you the news as it is, as opposed to what they think you want to hear. But I have found that, some people just don't operate that way, and actually I've had to churn my team a bit around the edges. And I do think that, I'm just not sure if my experience is we mishired the, people, or we created the wrong environment. But trying to create that environment where you do say, look, we're going to make mistakes and we're going to learn, and you get, but I want to know quickly if stuff is off course, or at least have the heads up. And I found some people just can't get with that kind of way of operating.
Yeah, and I think that's an opportunity to examine either the individual or your culture in some ways. And I agree with you. One experience that I constantly ran into is especially with new managers, young managers, newly promoted managers, managing people for the first time. They don't know how to ask for help because they think it's a sign of weakness. And what you need to do is impress on your team that is not only not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength, right? You think, oh, I'm a new manager. I'm supposed to know everything. I'm supposed to know this. I did this in my career. Like I wouldn't ask for help because I'm supposed to know this. No. Ask for help, right? And that will help you understand where you need help and where you can lean into. And there's development opportunities there. But you have to create, to your point, you have to create this environment of psychological safety, right? Where it's okay to fail. And if you fail, as long as it's in service of learning, that's okay. You're going to fail more often than you succeed probably. But if it's in service of learning and it was a stretch and okay, we reached for this and we didn't quite get there. What did we learn that's going to help us hit that next time? That is a huge, huge learning opportunity. And if you keep getting these repeated unforced errors that cause failure, that's an opportunity to examine it as well. Is this not the right person in the right role? Are they burned out? Do they not have training? Do they not have tooling? Do they not have access to resources that you need to provide them? And that's an opportunity to examine. Do they need to move on from the company, right? Those are all answers that eventually get to the heart of that. But you have to have the environment of safety and trust. And it's one of the first things I tell teams is like, you're not only allowed to fail, I encourage you to, because it means you're trying, it means you're stretching, it means you're not playing it safe. We're not going to succeed as a business if we're just playing it safe.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Igor, good question in here. Oh, sorry, Joe. Were you and I going for the same thing?
Yeah.
Right. Are the people reporting the KPI the same ones in charge for execution? So I think so. Yeah. In my experience, there's ownership that cascades down throughout the organization. So I was chief product officer and I was responsible for OKRs for the entirety of my 175 person organization. But my CTO was responsible for the engineering half and my chief product officer was responsible for the other half. And then they had team members who handled subscriptions and they were responsible for the KRs on the subscription and they owned those KRs with their business partners on the subscriptions team, right? And they're responsible for setting them and reporting on them. And as long as they laddered into the OKRs for the entire organization, there was that connective tissue all the way up and down. But giving them ownership is hugely important. Now that doesn't necessarily go down to, well, like, yes, I own this Jira ticket, but I also own the KRs for that. You got to figure out the right sort of fuel mix for your organization in terms of like where that ownership makes sense to sort of stop, depending on how big your company is and how big your team is and so forth. But it gives people buy-in, it gives them skin in the game, and it gives them accountability too, which are huge. That's a huge pairing. Ownership and accountability, huge pairing. You get to own something, but I'm going to hold you accountable for the outcomes. And those things have to exist together. Did that help, Igor?
Yeah. The issue I have, for example, with the teams is with managers, they kind of not really good at data management and reporting, and sometimes it can be a little bit complex. And to avoid this issue of watermelon effect, as you refer to, where everything looks right, but if I try to look deeper into the data, I can see there are a lot of interferences, noise, different things that should be filtered out, and they haven't noticed or haven't seen. So what I'm trying to do actually now, because it keeps coming back at me, is have our operations person who is more versatile than data management. So I define what it needs to be done. So it'd be more like independent data extraction or reporting around the goal. So they own the KPI. It's the KPI we all agreed upon, but the actual generating the number, make sure it's reliable to have it done by somebody else instead of the actual managers might not be good at it.
Yeah, I understand your question a little bit more there. Yeah, so it's the sort of the operationalization. That's a word, right? Operationalization of the of it, and make it lightweight, and don't make the outcome just the generation of the KPIs, right? That's not the outcome. The outcome is the business outcome that those KPIs measure. So I've seen people get really wrapped around the axle for this, where yeah, you lose all sight of what you're trying to achieve for 5 years because the outcome is the weekly report. And did I generate a good enough weekly report, or was it really hard and I'm wasting a lot of cycles generating the weekly report that nobody actually reads? So always examine that and make sure that these things are these are meant to be tools that serve the organization and the outcomes and the purpose, not vice versa, right? It's like, you know, the Jira tickets and the Trello boards are not the product. They help you build the product.
Do you have to link it with the personal performance of the entire team? Maybe just make sure that they're relevant, everyone is watching them. Maybe is this what a KPI is ultimately kind of needed for, to keep people accountable? So you have one-on-one meetings and say, look, this is the number.
Yeah, and it's keeping yourself accountable, first of all. But yes, it cascades, and there's ownership of this throughout the organization. So like, what is my role in achieving that KPI? And I understand my role in achieving this part of the KPI, whatever it is. And every week I see, like, am I on track or off track from a personal, you know, development and professional development standpoint? Because that helps people with their careers. People want to advance their careers. They want to grow. They want to learn. They want to know more. That's that demonstrating mastery, the brain part of the core product, right? People want to advance to provide for themselves and their family and so forth. And so this is a great way to give them ownership in that and transparency in it. And that really helps teams thrive and creates cultures where everybody knows, like, their role in creating and achieving things. The worst thing that happens, right, is every year you forget about performance reviews for 11 months, and then it comes up at the end of the year, and the manager's like this, and the employees like this, and they don't understand how they got there. Well, I thought I was going to get promoted. Well, why would you think that? Your performance is not where it needs to be. No, you got a tool here every week to have that conversation. If you have that conversation every week, you're on the same page and you know where you're going. And the manager looks good too, because they want to get promoted. And if their team's doing well, then they look good to their peers and their boss, and they get promoted. And I, as chief product officer, have a highly performing team. So when I go to my executive leadership team, I can show how, you know, high performance the product and engineering team is. And I look good to my CEO, right? It ladders all up and down.
Well, thank you. I think we're over time, so I know lots of you are ready to go, but no, thank you so much, John. I guess thank you to everybody. Like, thanks for being really engaged and asking all the questions. Really helps with everything with us. As again, you know, feel free to connect with John, but also hopefully we'll have John again for another workshop if you guys suggest some themes and topics that John can help with. But no, thank you so much. And again, just for next week, we have another workshop. It's with Angeline Mullins, who is the CCO of Resourcify. So she has been on the SaaStock stage a few times, but she is a branding extraordinaire. And so she'll lead a workshop on branding and blue ocean strategies. But thank you so much, John. Thank you so much, everybody. And I will see you back here exactly where we are next week. Thank you so much and have a good day.
Thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the SaaS Revolution Show. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you learned something from it, check out SaaStock.com/events to find all the upcoming SaaStock conferences around the world.
Want exclusive SaaS content and actionable insights to grow your SaaS? Join our community of over 36,000 SaaS founders at SaaStock.com.